Hi, this is Chris Nolte, and welcome to our second episode of Discovering the Possible, the future of business, technology, and global remote work. Today on our show, we're going to be talking about meetings and culture of meetings and communication in general in a remote-first company. And with me, I'll have my guest, Stelle, head of business development of Kayana. Stay tuned and watch and learn how we manage our company from 7,000 miles away.
We are at the nexus of something greater. This is our story about building a remote-only company that spans the entire globe. This is the future of business, technology, and global remote work. You are watching Discovering the Possible.
So let me start by saying I've never been known for managing an efficient meeting. Doesn't mean I can't do it. It's just that I tend to like people too much. I like to have some yucks, as my dad would say, some laughter in and around the meeting. I probably wouldn't survive very long at Amazon, I think, because I feel like there's something that's lost when it's all business. That's particularly the case when you start thinking from the perspective of a remote first business where our relationships are fostered in the meetings we have online. There's an article that particularly resonated with me. And it's an Harvard Business Review article in 2017. Quoted a senior pharmaceutical executive as having said, "I believe that our abundance of meetings at our company is the cultural tax we pay for the inclusive learning environment that we want to foster." And I'm okay with that. If the alternative to more meetings is more autocratic decision-making, less input from all levels throughout the organization, and fewer opportunities to ensure alignment and communication by personal interaction, then give me more meetings anytime. And I feel like that really encapsulates what it means to be a remote first business, because embedded in those meetings is relationship building, culture building, and frankly, the innovation that everyone bemoans is not happening at the water cooler if you are working in a remote environment. So when you start thinking about what a ideal meeting should look like, there's a lot of books out in the world that propose to create the best meeting system or plan, and it's one that you should follow. I think the best thoughts around basic meeting operation, and I think there's probably about 10 or 20 or more. The first and the most important thing is pick one and stick with it. But I should tell you that as a company, we're built around the EOS system, which is the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And that creates certain operational constraints in how we manage a meeting. Doesn't mean it's always efficient, but it means that we're talking about things in a way that allow us to keep the business moving. What the EOS system doesn't specifically talk about is the fun and the banter that happens in and around the details that are shared. And so at a very fundamental level, an effective meeting is a positive work experience that's somehow connected to the culture of the firm. And that when you have sort of a gelling and a expectation that is renewed every single day or every week as you have these meetings, it starts to hum, and everything starts to come easier. This is a really good thing to be a part of, especially when you're onboarding new remote professionals or employees to your team, to actually have this really dialed in, and people will immediately feel that. I felt this firsthand. I mean, Kayana was built one person at a time, first starting with the internal team. But as we got this sort of ritual going, and especially when we started running the EOS system, our director of operations really tightened up our communication and the ritual of updating everyone on the work to be done, and the work that was done, the work to be done. And quite frankly, these rituals that we do in these meetings are not just to develop the team and to develop the cadence, it's also to allow individuals who are otherwise probably not as communicative to find that ritual in themselves to give the team what they need. So I've really seen what would be otherwise very quiet people become very confident because of the rituals of our meeting platform and systems. Every company has a meeting strategy, and you really need to stick to it. In our particular case, it's EOS, which is the Entrepreneurial Operating System. The question really there is within those meetings, how do you inculcate that with the culture of the firm? In our case, it's work hard, play hard. And that means that while we're delivering the news, we're delivering it with a sense of levity. We're probably telling some jokes. We're goofing around, and we're planning for what's going to happen at the end of the day. And when creating transparency within our company, what makes it work is the combination of these meeting and communication platforms. And then finally, the work OS tools that we use to handle tasks and handoff between tasks. Our systems are tight. I mean, we have a very strong sense of execution within our organization, which finds its way into our Slack channels, which is running through all of our L10 meetings, but is also there for people to see, including all the transcripts of all the meetings we've ever held that it's sitting in fireflies.ai so that people can do language search or querying across all of our meetings to find the meetings that they might have missed or that contain information that are important for them to do their job. So I think there are like 3 levels of executing a very effective meeting and or communication platform within a remote first business. And some of those may or may not be more important to a company that's not working remotely only. But I think if I would suggest anything, it's pick a strategy and stick with it. Even us as a company, we have moved off course from time to time and had to remind ourselves the importance of keeping our schedule and keeping our meeting structure. And ultimately, we're pulled back in. And it was obvious immediately that we had made a mistake by veering off course. We should have stayed the course on our system. And it has been absolutely lovely to be reminded of those things. My goal within our meeting is to speak last. I fail almost every time, but I really do try to speak last. The fireflies.ai analytics, you'll see all the hours of conversation we have, how fast people talk, how many filler words they use. It's really powerful stuff that heretofore most people didn't have available to them in meetings. I become increasingly aware of my spoken word rate and how much I need to stop speaking. But don't take it from me as to how this all goes down. I think it's really important to get a sense from some of our other team members. I'd like to introduce you to Stelle. She's our head of business development. So let's spice things up a little bit here and bring on some of our internal team members to say, to kind of tell you for themselves what they think of our meetings and where we succeed and where we fail.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Chris. Thank you for having me here.
Great to have you, Stelle. Stelle, you've seen it when we veered away from our L10 cadence. And when I monologued way too much. Maybe tell everyone about your experience in that and how important it is to stick to your meeting management.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Well, before joining Kayana, I'm so used to being a one-man team. So I'm a one-person show, doing everything from planning to execution on my own. So imagine my surprise when I joined Kayana and experienced our team meeting for the first time. So I was blown away. Um, the way we keep each other accountable, support one another is really incredible. Your monologue is good, Chris. Nothing to worry about that. We need to lessen that, yes, but you're working on it. But overall, it made me think. So this is what a great team looks like, and this is how a great team can make a difference in your productivity. Because every meeting is not just insightful, but it also boosts my productivity. They give me clear picture of what my week will look like, what are the focus of sales and marketing team to support operations and the whole company. It also reminds me of our goals, and personally, it looks like having a personal cheerleading squad behind you. It keeps me motivated and driven to do better each day.
I couldn't agree with agree with you more. One of the benefits of having a team is the accountability that comes with it. And
Right.
it's like morning accountability or twice a day accountability with the team. And you don't want to let each other down. And you know how important the cadence is to the company and the commitments we make to one another and whether we deliver or not. So there are a lot of theories about how to run remote teams. And that's especially important for a company like ours that's remote first. Literally, we're all remote, including myself. But I will tell you this, is that the cadence and the ritual of it is the thing that keeps us together. Now, our company, we open the day together and we close out the day. I mean, I think we have a half an hour for everyone to get acclimated when they start their day. But within a half an hour, we're in a meeting, we're in our L10 meeting, talking about the things we're going to be working on that day and the things we hope to accomplish. And at the very end of the day, with time to spare so that they can close out the end of day reporting, we're catching everyone up on the things we accomplished or didn't accomplish with the expectation that next following day, they will show up in some way, shape, or form again. People might feel like this is unnecessary. And like I said earlier on, I don't think that's at all true. I think that ritual, that stand-up meeting at the beginning of the day is critical. It's very efficient, and it really doesn't take much from you and can go very quickly, especially as the whole team is accustomed to that ritual. So what we try to prioritize in those meetings is giving each team member an opportunity to update on their particular task. And our company, our remote professionals are our team. And so even when we are starting new initiatives, we're bringing in new remote professionals and they're kind of being brought up to speed in our cadence and our methods. It's really important to have that cadence, and it's really important to develop that method of communication because we never meet in person. I think the best way of thinking about meetings in a remote first business is to think about the FaceTime you're doing in a Google Meet and or a Zoom call, and the meetings that you're doing outside of these group sessions through Slack and or the huddles within Slack. It's interesting how people choose whether they're having a one-on-one meeting or whether they're doing a Google Meet meeting, and whether or not within those meetings there's going to actually be an AI transcripting tool. We use AI, fireflies.ai. But if you're doing a huddle and this is sort of like a unscripted check-in, then it's probably a huddle within Slack. And then beyond that, you have these sort of asynchronous meetings, which are in the channels within Slack. When you combine what's happening in the stand-up meetings with our team with the impromptu meetings on Huddle, just as sort of a check-in or a quick question, and then the asynchronous conversations that are happening in Slack, you have the makings of a very robust communication platform. And within any company, we think of basically that communication as oxygen. It's literally what keeps the business going. It is where the culture happens, but it isn't necessarily the culture itself. So I think the most important thing when thinking about meetings is to actually think at a higher level first of communication, number one, and how do the meetings, remote or in person, contribute to the communication that's happening within the organization. You know, when you start talking about open communication and this oxygen that we need to breathe to make the company run, I think there is sort of connective tissue that fosters the transparency of our organization. And one of the ways we do that is through this fireflies.ai tool, which I just mentioned. The meetings that people are in, and even the meetings that they're not in, are available to anyone to review. And so if I'm meeting with a client, I will oftentimes refer someone to a meeting and the transcription of that meeting. That's also true of internal meetings that are held, where you get the benefits of someone taking notes and then transcribing and summarizing those meetings. That's, I think, fundamental to the transparency of our organization. But beyond that, I think the communication that happens in Slack is also very critical, because that communication, while otherwise potentially happening by the water cooler, is now actually transcribed or written down for everyone to see. So there's a working history of the conversation related to a client or a remote professional, or in our case, sometimes marketing strategies. So everything's documented. So communication culture can be done very purposefully and or established very purposefully, or could be established very casually. But whether or not it's written down and established with great specificity, or whether or not it sort of grows organically, really has to do with the leader of the company who is establishing the culture and demonstrating the right and wrong ways of doing things. I like to think of myself as someone that's very open and is willing to kind of understands my own faults and is very appreciative of people co-developing the organization with me. I think historically, remote professionals were not seen as people that were in a position to do that. They were oftentimes, they were called virtual assistants for a long, long time, still are to some extent. They're really not that. They are specialists, and they can add a tremendous amount of value. And I've co-created this business with them. And in that regard, the communication infrastructure and our culture of communication was built out of a remote first model, where we needed to be communicating all the time to make sure everything was working in order. Now, connected to all of that, of course, is our work operating systems, which facilitate a lot of the handoffs and tasks, et cetera, which also really improves our communication and, quite frankly, the efficiency of our meetings. Talk to us a little bit about what happens in between the meetings. Like, what's the communication structure look like? How do you how available is everyone? How does that work?
Well, we ensure that meetings stay on track and do not run over the allotted time because, again, we have tasks to do in a day to day basis. So, to keep our meetings on track, we scheduled, of course, our L10 and morning kickoff, Chris, with the whole team. We focus on being direct and concise. We have clear agenda. We always know what we're going to talk about and stick to it. We have time management. We allocate specific time slots for each agenda and each person. Chris Nolte will only have 5 minutes every meeting, just to let you know, guys, and strictly adhere to them. And we're very thankful to our head of operations, Mary. Big shout out, because she acts like our facilitator. She makes sure that we are on time, we stick to our agenda, and we talk about the things we need to talk to on our morning meeting. So that's how our meetings look like in a day to day basis.
And so as you go through the day, in between those meetings, things are happening in Slack, people are getting in huddles. Like, how do you use those channels and that communication to keep things moving? And how might it be different if you were in person? Would it be better? Would it be the same? Would it be worse? Like, what would it look like?
Well, given that I already have experience working in a corporate, company where we always do meetings like in the meeting room, we need to wait for one facilitator. We have coffee on our desk to start the meeting. It makes a lot more difference to be on remote first culture because it's so easy to reach out to our let's say team members, reach out to them through Slack. Hey, hey Mark, are you available for a quick huddle? Which is very helpful, by the way, because we are very mindful for everyone's time. So we need to ask for the availability first to do a quick call just to check on everything. And we have what we call sales and marketing tag, timeline, agenda, and goals. So before we do individual meetings with the team, we have like a whole department meetings just to really make sure we are aligned with our goals. So we really make use of the Google Meet, Slack, even sending out emails so that our communications are aligned with our goals. Compared to corporate, that it takes so much time, and sometimes, Chris, monologues also happen in corporate world, just one person talking, and you are on your second cup of coffee, and you'll say, when will this end? I have a lot of deliverables. And right now in remote first, we can talk a little, do things and simultaneously, and it's all productive at once. effective.
It is very productive. It's remarkably productive, and we do it all remotely. And you're
Exactly.
right, like we're not looking for each other all that often. Like we know where to find each other because
Hmm.
you're like Slack, huddle away. You're not cruising the halls. I've actually never really thought about this. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't chase people down anymore. I just sort of I give them the @ and call, get their handle on Slack and be like, hey, and then move on to the next thing. So yeah, the pace of work really changes when you're remote first, and when you're not constrained by the physical workspace that meetings and communication typically have in a physical office.
E-
It's really, really interesting. Huh.
Exactly.
Um,
And it's also good that we have the right people in our team. Communication is not hard. We have, the right people. We hired you vet the right people. So it's all part of the process to have the great people in our team as well.
One of the most amazing things that happened in our company, this is about 6 months ago, we had two people living in Davao, and unbeknownst to each other, responded to the same ad for a litter of kittens and ended up realizing in a large city that they both adopted kittens from the same litter. And I'm not even sure I think they met each other in person once. And yet here they adopted cats from the same kitten litter. And they're basically brother and sister seeing each other remotely. Um, and they realized this because they saw a cat in the picture that looked exactly like their kitten. And that was crazy. That was like definitely a kind of moment for sure.
I remember that, and it was a shocker when they knew their cats are siblings. So that's really
Great.
fun, and it made me realize, Chris, that with the dense number of meetings we have at Kayana, not everything is all business. We know how to have fun. You check on your professionals on a daily basis. Maybe one of the things or funny things that I would remember is every time we're gonna say, "Chris, you're muted.
Oh, you're muted, Chris.
You're muted, Chris.
You're muted, Chris. You're muted.
You're just making that up.
You're muted."
You're muted, Chris.
You're muted, Chris.
Because we don't know why you're muted every now and then. So
Listen, that is like those are like the words most said today more than ever. Like if there's like an index in the words said, it's you're muted.
yes,
Because let's face it, everyone's always managing their microphone, and remote work meetings are super funny. There's a lot of
yes,
memes out there, and we probably represent a lot of them. But
yep.
it's the nature of the beast at this point. I think there's a culture of amongst the remote professionals to help motivate and drive performance when you're all working remotely. There is no like uh, lunch meetings away. There's none of that sort of thing. It's all coming from us that's
Hmm.
sort of driving that. And it's us taking those client calls together. It's us meeting those remote professionals, matching those remote professionals, managing situations in the field, which are all remote.
Hmm.
It's really it's sort of it's a fun dynamic. But even those meetings and those those meetings can have moments of levity. And I'm thinking specifically of our end of week meetings when
Hmm.
we literally have. I mean, when everyone gets their avatars on, that's when everyone gets dressed up for the end of
Right.
the week,
And
for the weekend anyway.
I really love that we have that happy hour, Chris. Knowing that the whole week has been maybe a rough road, or there might be some challenges we face, but we always end the week with a smile. Sharing our wins, telling our personal stories. On our happy times, we have our avatars. We do like bunny faces. We do the puffer fish. We have the robots, and we just talk about random things. We talk about how we will spend our weekend. Which restaurant we need to visit again. What's the best food to eat over the weekend? What's the number of hours we will sleep over the weekend? So those are small things that really foster our community as a team. We're not just gonna talk about all businesses. And I also remember when we all watched our podcast producer Mark play a game during our happy hour, and we're like, "Oh no, Mark, you're terrible at it. Do
We're
better."
cheering him on. We're
We're just
basically, yeah,
teasing. Yeah, we're just
we're like,
teasing him.
yeah, we're basically watching him play video games and
Yeah.
cheering him on. It's ridiculous. But it's like basically watching a live on YouTube of someone playing a
Mm.
game. The other thing I'll mention, which we haven't talked about, bringing sort of your personal life in, it's the
Mhm.
community that we foster with our other remote professionals, not just in our internal team, but the people that work with our clients. The VA community is so strong and robust that, you know, the very culture and communication that we are talking about for our internal team is also showing up in the Slack channels of our remote professionals too. And so that really creates a certain energy as well that I think fuels me when I come in the morning and I see all the things that people did that day. Because what's interesting about that is they're starting their day at the end of their day, and I'm starting it at the beginning. So they're coming to work, our remote professionals, including yourself. It's wild when everyone's living on different time zones
Time zone.
all around the world. And that is something that's unique in a remote first worldwide business like ours, where we are meeting each other at different times of the day, having had experiences and are catching up with each other at the beginning of every meeting. So it's really cool. And within our own Slack channels with our extended community too. So
Exactly. Yeah, since you mentioned
today I
about the
saw,
Slack, the Slack channel, the VA community, which I really love, Chris, because even though I personally haven't met anyone from the team, and when I read their messages in Slack telling how their day went, what's gonna be their focus today, I feel connected with them, even though
yeah,
it's just like through a Slack message, and that really fosters our camaraderie. It's really good.
yeah. Now, it doesn't mean we'll never see each other in person. In fact, we have something in the planning stages that we can't talk about here, which will bring us all together, I think, in a really nice way. But it's just a lot less of that in-person connectivity and a lot more of that remote connectivity that we enjoy every day. And I think these things work wonderfully together. I think a lot of companies today are realizing that hybrid work actually is very efficient. And we just happen to be an extreme example of that. I don't think you're not putting the remote professional back in the bottle. I don't care if you're Jeff Bezos or you're Mark Zuckerberg. This thing is never going away. I think we all value our time too much. I value the efficiency of being able to get things done in my kitchen and eating and making my own cup of coffee and not paying Starbucks an arm and a leg for a cup of coffee. It's just it's a way of doing things that I don't think is going away. So still, I think we'd all agree that when you have a really good meeting cadence, some very healthy, asynchronous communication happening in Slack channels and the occasional huddle, along with sort of just the work hard, play hard culture of Kayana, I never feel disadvantaged in any way. And I feel like we're pushing as hard as we possibly can to grow this, to build important, relevant communications and relationships with our remote professionals, and then also really tie them very closely to their clients. So it's just a matter of picking a system and sticking to it, and then just bring your personality to it. And I think we do that all really well. Which takes us to, I think, one of my favorite topics. And it has to do with the origins of our name. Kayana is actually a mashup, as you know, of two Tagalog words, Tagalog being the native language of the Philippines, although there are a lot of different dialects. And don't think Tagalog will get you everywhere and people will completely understand it. But Kayana is kaya, meaning can do, and na, meaning now. And that attitude about doing things now and taking initiative is the underpinnings of our culture. It is how we vet people. Oftentimes we have remote professionals saying, what do I need to have to get into your organization? And that's the first thing I talk about. It's about taking initiative and having sort of a can-do attitude about tackling problems, because that's what's missing. That's what's hard to do in life, is to kind of take initiative. You always need someone in your life that's willing to do that. And that's where Kayana comes in. And it's also about growth and taking responsibility for your life and your career and your opportunities. But that's me talking. Stelle, how does that come together in your experience within the team? Is this just word only? How do we kind of bring that to life in your mind?
Well, when I first heard about this, Chris, like can do assistance you can't do without, it made me think, am I one? Am I someone that's like that? Am I giving value to my client that made me think or made them think I'm the can do professionals they can't live without? And it starts with, being reliable and resourcefulness. So when I started working with you, you remember, um, I kept asking you, I need this report, Chris, and you told me, so unfortunately, we don't have that. So I want to help you. I want to help Kayana grow. What I did is um, I became resourceful. I made sure that I can deliver results. Even though it's getting tough, even though I need to make innovative ways to like either find a way or make one. So that's what I always think. Like Chris needs this, Kayana needs this. What do I need to do? Do I find a way to do it or do I make a way to do it? And that's a can do attitude that I really like developed in the company.
You are absolutely right. And that is how you hit the ground running. There's no doubt.
Right.
You embodied the can do attitude when you started with us. And I think it's that idea that you knew what we wanted and you kind of brought it to life in your own way. Now, combine that with your knowledge of AI and ChatGPT, and like you are a force to be reckoned with, because not only are you bringing content, bringing very interesting thoughts to the company that otherwise would be work that would never get done or would be getting done weeks, if not months later. And here you are bringing it all at once. And I thought that's really when you stood out to me, when you were pushing that way. And that's exactly what we try to deliver as a brand every day. And so that's sort of our brand value. That is our name.
Mm-hmm.
I love that name. I love what it means and stands for. I mean, we trademark or in the process of trademarking our name in 20 countries simultaneously. We really believe in that naming structure and what it means within our industry and what it means with remote professionals looking to create a difference for their clients, and is the best place for lifelong learners like yourself who are always interested in learning a new skill and are resourceful enough to take advantage of the tools we have. Now, let's talk about some of the tools that allow you to be self-reliant. I mean, part of what the Filipino culture is resourcefulness, but what tools are you using to be a self-reliant, can-do person? Is there something that you fall back on or tools that you think of?
Yes, of course. And actually, you're the person who introduced me to this tool. This is what we call AI. So this helped me a lot. When I joined Kayana, I didn't know anything about it. What is Boodlebox? I even like got it wrong, right, Chris? And we were doing a meeting, and you're like, "No, Sal, it's Boodlebox." So I typed it again. It made a lot more difference. Um, it has, it's a platform that has all the chat GPTs, the Claude, those Gemini, um, help me deliver results like instead of having it like days, like hours. And it also helped me that you trained me to use the tool properly, because the tool without a driver is useless. But if you have the right driver on it, it's powerful. So you help me, understand prompt engineering. And I'm happy, Chris, that we're also doing it to our aspiring VAs and we're training them to leverage on this tool. And, I can't make it, I can't keep it as a secret anymore, but that helped me a lot. Definitely.
I I will say, like, I remember you were working on something, and my most proud moments in your training was when you started prompt engineering a scoring system and asking, I think it was ChatGPT, to value its outputs using its own scoring system that you helped it design. And that's next level. That's next level AI prompt engineering. And it's only getting better and more powerful. And it only makes us more productive and more capable. So it is the ultimate tool for a can-do Kayana remote professional. And you have taken to that. I feel like you know me, Stelle. You know me. You know what I respond to. But I also think you realize the magic of that tool too. So that's really awesome. So it really, it allows us to be really collaborative. And I think this goes to kind of the selflessness of a remote team. And that is, we really are playing for the end goal in mind. Especially in an EOS platform, when you're thinking about the rocks or the boulders that stand in your way, we're all kind of pulling in the same direction. So Stelle, there are some tools and tricks and tips that you probably developed or have seen developed in our organization. Let's go through them. What are your top tips and tricks for our organization?
Meeting hacks. Well, first, I want to keep it short and sweet. Attention spans can wane, so we need to aim for focused discussions. I know, Chris, it could be a problem with you because you really love to share something. Just to let everyone know, Chris starts his day very early, earlier than us. So in every 9:30 meeting, you always have this excitement to share great news. Like, guys, I did this, I did that, and sometimes like, oh, good job, and it goes beyond the time limit. So we tell them, Chris, 5 minutes left, and we're gonna give it to another remote professional, but he's working on it. He's working on making it short and sweet. His monologues are no longer monologues, and yeah, keeping it sweet and short. That's the first hack. And I think I could give like a second one, start with a laugh. Again, in a remote first culture, we don't have, or we're not physically together to tap each other's back. Like, hey, how are you? Hey, good morning. So it's good to start the meeting with a laughter, trying to like shrug off those let's say negative vibes. Always start the day with positivity. I would always say that. And I think you have a fair share, it comes to giving an icebreaker. You give jokes, but we love. And again, your excitement towards sharing something is already an icebreaker for us because we say, Chris, you're muted, or Chris, 5 minutes left.
Or Chris, you should be muted. I'm famous for my dad jokes, which is totally appropriate. That, of course, as a dad, I should be giving out a lot of dad jokes. I'll save that for another podcast, all my great dad jokes. But unfortunately, you guys become the recipient of many of them. So thank you for that.
And again, we need to rotate roles. So let different team members lead meetings to foster engagement. So we actually do that in our meetings, and we also do that in our sales and marketing. So we let Mark, our producer, lead the meeting. Other days, Y, our podcast manager, and some days you, and some days me. So it really fosters, the community. And I also remember that in every meeting, you want to incorporate games. Chris, tell us something. Tell us about it. Like how you want to play Among Us during our morning
Well,
meeting.
listen, I'm a gamer. Like, you have to understand this about me. And there are games. I was talking to one of my kids about a game I played when I was his age in college called Civilization. Now we're on to Civ 6 and on to Civ 7. It is like a banger of a game. My kids love Fortnite. I'm a hack. I feel like I seriously have like high cortisol levels because of that stupid game, because I'm terrible at it and people are trying to kill me. But we try to bring that sort of culture into our meetings. And actually, our producer, Mark, had the idea that we should be playing, what is it? Yeah, Amongst Us, which, by the way, was a total awesome sort of COVID game. We're bringing it back, and we might just bring back some of those, my favorite moments of from those games into our podcast, because there's no better way to learn about someone than to play amongst us with them. It's actually it's a just fantastic game. So we love doing that. We have produced songs in our meetings using Udio and other AI song producing tools. We've watched, like we said earlier, our producer play games. It's just a place to be real. And I feel like sometimes small businesses or remote first businesses have a leg up because, it's such a flat organization in a sense. We're all sort of connected. We all need each other to execute on that work. And in that regard, we're a very strong community. So we're building it every day. It's a beautiful world in Kayana through all of our meetings. And we're here to help share that with you in our podcast and our future podcasts and Discovering the Possible, the future of business, technology, and global remote work. So thank you for joining us again for today's episode of Discovering the Possible, the future of business, technology, and remote work. I'm Chris, founder of Kayana.
And I'm Stelle, the head of business development.
And we're excited to share with you our culture and our journey as a remote first worldwide company operated from the comfort of our own homes. Till next time, thank you so much.